Hi there. If you want to support this show, go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. But also, we have something kind of cool coming out, like right around the time this does. And you can learn about it by following us on social media. So go to twitter.com/DuckFeedTV or any of our Facebook pages for any of the shows. And also keep an eye on Duckfeed.tv/storage. Lots of cool stuff. Way too much stuff to talk about at the start. So just generally be aware that we're doing stuff. You knew that. Okay, now time for the show.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a airbrushed favorite.
Yep. And this week, we have a special episode here. I don't know if it's going to be numbered as special, but we are talking about the Dark Souls comics. This most recent run here that came out in 2016 to coincide with the launch of Dark Souls 3 by George Mann doing the writing and Alan Qua doing the art.
Yes. Yeah. And, produced by Titan Comics.
Right.
And this comic book, kind of hilariously, when you get to the end of one of these, I don't know if the digital versions have these, but you end up with advertisements for like Assassin's Creed, an Assassin's Gift, all these mini series, for, Torchwood, The Unbelievers, like all these different kind of, these kind of things. And this is pretty much and it's written by George Mann. George Mann is a guy who wrote some Doctor Who, is my understanding.
Okay.
So maybe just the adaptations, maybe just the comics or novels of Doctor Who, actually. I think he's a Doctor Who novelist.
All right. I actually had never heard of any of the people associated with this. I had to do some Googling. I didn't even know who Titan Comics was. Like,
me either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of seems like it's just a house that does licensed comics is the thing primarily with video game stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And it had that kind of thing whenever like an author from the world of letters gets into comics, and they're kind of like just like, oh man, we got a real author, which is kind of a thing that comics people do sometimes.
Right.
I remember it kind of being, the fact that this guy was working on it was kind of like not a big deal, but was kind of a mark of hope.
Right.
When this was announced, it's like, oh, this guy will do a good job. So this is released, like I said, April 2016 to coincide with Dark Souls 3, part of the Dark Souls 3 like marketing, whatever you want to call that, like the chicken wings /y souls bad shirt,
right?
Bad comic triumvirate of bad from soft marketing stuff. And there are 3 miniseries to it. We're just covering the first one.
Yes.
Today, which is
the Breath of Andolus.
Yes, but there are 2 other ones: Legends of the Flame and Winter's Spite. We may talk about those in the future, depending on how fun this is and whether it makes sense in our schedule.
Right.
So I have the first issue of Legends of the Flame. I have not started reading it though.
Okay. Yeah. Winter's Spite is complete. You can buy that like in a Kindle ebook. Is how I'm reading these. And Legends of the Flame, I believe, just has its first issue out.
It's weird though, because when I came in to get the 4th issue of this, they gave me the first issue of Legends of the Flame.
What?
And no Winter's Spite. So I thought it was the other order.
Maybe. It's a lot of this. It was actually very difficult to not very difficult. It wasn't trying to solve rocket puzzles. Yeah. No, but like it was a little bit confusing trying to figure out because single issues are just Dark Souls number 1, Dark Souls number 2, Dark Souls number 3, and they're collected under Breath of Andolus. I was not sure which of those actually came first because like there's no like index table on Wikipedia or something like that to show the published date or any of those. Yeah. And it doesn't on the cover. It doesn't say Breath of Andolus. It doesn't say that until you get into the page. It was like as recently as 2 hours ago, I was asking Gary, all right, I read these 4. Did I read the right ones?
Yeah. Are we doing all 12 of these things today?
Yeah.
I knew this was out and I was looking for it, but my local comic book store didn't have it. So I actually, last year when I visited home, I went to my home comic book store and found a copy of the first issue and read that on the plane. So I read this the first issue shortly after it came out. I didn't read all of them until I came back here and this is actually like, I have a pull box at the local store that just collects these.
Okay.
It is just, so I need to go pick there up and go there and get all the legends, the rest of the legends of the
saddest box.
It is a pretty sad box. The guy who runs that place, it's a real kind of quirky place. Hasn't emailed me to say like, hey, pick up your shit yet.
Right.
Which I'm expecting. So maybe, I don't know. I keep expecting that guy to like a bunch of old newspapers to fall over on that guy and trap him, because that place is like, I don't know if I don't think we went there anytime you visited Portland, but it's worth a shot. It's a real weird dank basement full of boxes and newspapers and old sci-fi novels.
Oh geez, yeah.
It's kind of great. Like it's really un-Portland.
Okay.
So I kind of like it, but it is. I do worry about the guy.
Yeah. No, I thought you were making a joke about so many of your Dark Souls comics piling up that he would, be killed like one of those New York brothers. But yes,
old copies of Overstreet like falling over and destroying him. Like
okay.
So
yeah. No, I've never. I have not been there.
Yeah. So future dreams. So that was like, I kind of read this. And I figured, okay, we'll probably do this for the show. We did that Dark Souls 2 comic. Like, this is a serious piece of media. And reading the first issue, I thought maybe it would end up tying more in to canon and stuff. But as we'll discover, the ways this ties into the actual games are pretty slight and obnoxious and problematic.
Yes.
I think. Not problematic like, Orange Team keeps going on about how, white nationalism or anything, but like problematic in the sense that they don't work.
Right. It just feels a little bit like window dressing.
Yes.
And a lot of, it's literally just like invocations of a name or like a quote of,
or an image or a character. Yeah. Enough. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and we should probably say, we get heat for being too negative on a lot of Dark Souls related stuff. I don't know if there are a lot of people who are going to go to bat for this. Like but if you are somebody who will be distraught by us kind of raking this thing over the coals, please understand, like that's kind of what you're in for, because for as much as like I kind of like the style of certain frames, this thing is a mess.
This is a really bad comic on almost every way. And like, if I am, getting a little fatigued by the negativity too. Like between, we have this, we just recorded Watch Out for Fireballs on Shadow of Destiny. Mm-hmm. We have this, and then we have Salt and Sanctuary, which is like, ugh. And it's going to be, springtime is turning into our summer of glum. Like it's moved to another section of the year. So we definitely got to pull up. Like we got to figure something out to get this relentless tide of negativity here. Mm-hmm. But mostly I haven't heard anybody who's like, man, I really like the comic. I've only heard people who were like, man, I had high hopes for it.
Yeah.
A lot of people haven't taken the plunge on this, which is why we are not doing an appendix episode, because I don't know if anybody would write in.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to very many people who have actually read it.
No. It's such a numb thing that I was actually surprised that it got multiple runs.
Yeah, it had to have sold relatively well, to have done so. Kind of weird.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So before, and there are generalities. There are reasons why I think this is a bad comic series. Mm-hmm. And I think it is holistically bad. Like I think there are individual images that look fine in still frame, but I think the panel to panel storytelling is atrocious.
Yeah.
I think it does and a lot of the backgrounds are really bland. I think it is actually badly drawn as well. It is just there are kind of ways you can look at it where it looks kind of pretty. Mm-hmm. And then when you start kind of examining it, like what is actually happening here? Why is this person in this pose? Like, it falls down.
Oh, definitely. And also like that gets to another thing, that the pacing is a nightmare, particularly because of the things they chose to adapt about this. They decided to adapt the combat.
Which again, like kind of makes sense. Like I was reading George Mann on his website, and like, he's like, he likes Dark Souls.
Right.
He's like, I really love that world. I was really excited to do something in it. I don't know how much of that is true. Like if it's whether he just liked the pitch that was given to him about it, like, oh, it's a dying world and zombies are coming back, but it adapts the combat in a way that doesn't feel like Dark Souls combat. I don't know exactly how you would do that, but it's not this.
No.
So there are a lot of fight scenes, but even when you're not in fight scenes, like the only times this gets good is when it is a grand establishing shot of something.
Yeah. Some
of those are kind of cool. But actually all of the action, most of the comic is action, is really, really poorly rendered.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the goodwill the art in this book gets is because of this kind of like, and this is a totally a personal style thing. Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with objective reality, but this kind of painfully computer rendered, like very, very painterly, Photoshoppy coloring. Yeah. Like the coloring and inking in this is just really wrought. Like, done so much so that it does not look like a drawn image anymore. And I think that I get that it's kind of an interesting style. It's not to my specific preferences. The way that I think that it actually is bad, though, is kind of like the posing and blocking and action.
Yeah.
And panel composition. There's some really bad panel composition stuff. Like there's a thing in this issue where it's like, oh, this is exactly why you wouldn't do it this way. And I'll point it out when we get there.
Yeah. But it's definitely, I mean, like, especially just like the first issue, it's strange to recommend buying it, but like, if you want to follow along and like see examples of what we're talking about, like $3 is not going to be that bad.
Yeah. It's a $3.99 comic, physical form, but it's also worth getting because the cover for the first one, the only one I was able to find is the sketch cover of Angry Solaire, which like, I think this is such a funny image. Like I think this is worth, a couple bucks on its own just to have this like super pissy Solaire.
And he shows up in a frame in the story for no reason at all.
He fights. He does a whole fight scene, and it's supposed to be a hallucination that she's having. Yeah. Like the story is incomprehensible. This is a really bad. This is a very bad comic. Also, real quick before we get into it, if you like this kind of thing, because we're going to talk not just about how this is bad, but how it's a bad Dark Souls comic, you should become our patron and listen to Adaptation Decay.
Yes,
because it's a whole show about this very principle, and this could be an Adaptation Decay episode.
Yeah. You can either get that by being a patron at the $10 level. Those come out just about every month. Or if you want to get back episodes, those are available at Duckfeed.tv/store. Plug!
Yeah. Yep. And those are usually us talking about movies that adapt video games, but we'll do comics and stuff in the future as well.
Yeah.
Because this stuff is interesting. So let's get started. Begins with this kind of so it actually, real quick before we actually get into it, some of the most successful images.
You said that 5 times.
I know. But I was going to say to say something nice about it. Yeah. The splash pages whenever you open the issue is a scene from the actual game.
Right.
From Dark Souls 3, and these are pretty nice looking.
Yeah, it's like concept art. Like this is this is a scene from High Wall.
Yes. Yeah. And those are pretty good. Yeah. Now we can get into it. I wanted to get in my quota of like 2 nice things before I complain about it.
Yeah, because that's how compliment sandwiches work. It's like a Big Mac.
Yeah, it's like a Grand Mac.
Ooh, Le Grand Mac.
When I visited home recently.
Yeah,
and I guess there was the local Burger King was putting on an event called Burger King Live.
Oh boy,
which was a thing where they would come out and make your sandwiches in front of you, and you got to meet Big Mac. Not the King, but Big Mac. And we
why would Burger King be? Why would they have a character named Big Mac?
I don't know.
That seems like corporate sabotage.
I apologize. I'm not Big Mac. I'm discombobulated. I mean, Whopper. The Whopper. A character called the Whopper, which is not a character in their mythology as far as I know.
Well, there was that one commercial where there was the burger dad who was very upset with Whopper Jr., who was a kid dressed up like a burger. Yeah.
And he kept wiping his ass with like bad toilet paper with a bunch of bears. I remember that.
Yeah.
They had Burger King Live, and I was like, you're, as my friends were telling me about it, I was like, you're shitting me. And we drove by it to look at the little sign. I was like, Burger King Live, February 18th and 19th. Like, fuck, I missed Burger King Live? I could have taken a picture with the Whopper.
Not the Whopper, just Whopper.
Just go to the strip club where they let you take a picture with Whopper? I don't know. It's pretty amazing. I'm sad that I missed it.
You just have to check the calendars. It's so easy to miss these important events.
Siri, set up a reminder for Burger King Live.
So we can get into it. The first issue kind of starts with this comic book equivalent of a text scroll, which explains kind of the founding myth of this particular world and their age of fire. Gone are the pantheon that we know, because this is not the same story. Instead, we have a dragon named Andolus, whose breath is the flame, and a king named, Karamis. I'm sorry, all these names are Teflon to me.
Yeah.
Who, slayed the dragon in order to get his breath to kind of explode out again to revive humanity, because with humanity came the curse of undeath.
Yes. Yeah. So fair enough. It's another, like, I'm surprised this isn't DLC 2. Like, it's another just like world with another metaphor for the flame going out. This time it's a dragon fire. It's kind of weird because dragons, have a place in this whole mythology. Like they're explicitly outside the cycle.
Right.
That's kind of the point of them. But, fair enough. We'll give it to you, George, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's also just kind of like a good visual thing. Like you slay the dragon in order to use his fire to relight the world. Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that being, something you would want to adapt for the medium,
Yeah.
Because that's literally all that we're building towards.
Yes.
And it like the book opens kind of promisingly. I like this page of, as it's talking about the curse, and we see the family slowly hollowing as the light takes on a different character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a family having a starving to death and then slowly turning into zombies at the end. And this turns out this is actually a dream of our principal character for the series called Fira. And Fira is at a campfire, like in this crystal cavern kind of area, with a character who and she's losing her memory. She has the curse,
right?
And is confronted by Eldritch.
Yep.
Okay.
The same.
Yeah, I don't. There's some weird, there's some things that suggest that it is,
right?
Because later someone says oh, your dreams of the deep are so, but who knows what is just this guy getting a bunch of notes.
Right. Oh, there's a character named Eldritch who is a famed, magician kind of person, blah.
Yes. So this could be the same Eldritch, and there are some details that suggest it is. If so, this does more harm to our understanding of Dark Souls 3 than helps it, because it means Eldritch exists outside of cycles.
Right.
Because this is not our world. This would mean you have to survive past this into the world of Lothric and stuff. So
yeah. So this is either a different land or a different kingdom, built on the same world, or this would have been converged away. Like it is again that just a little bit too sloppy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also, he's not a magician in this. He's specifically a soothsayer.
Yeah, there he goes. Like a scryer. Yeah, and they also refer to him as a cleric as well. He's like a shaman. Like he's a little bit dressed like a queequeg a little bit. Like he just wears like a loincloth or a skirt, and he's everything else is just tattoos.
Yes. But he never casts a spell.
Right.
And never does. He has no bearing to the Eldritch we know.
No. But he is a person who is kind of like acting as a guide for this quest that Fira is on, and he's mostly just there to be shady as fuck.
Yes, yeah. There's lots of close-ups on him, like kind of smiling at the corner of his mouth.
Yeah.
So you're not to trust this guy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we have Fira, who is losing her memory, and that curse amnesia is used as kind of a justification for exposition. Oh, please explain to me what we are doing, Scryer.
Well, they do that. This is very sloppy because they do that here. Eldritch gives her this poppet, this tiny doll. Not the same doll that Eldritch is associated with,
right?
Which is like, hey, you gave this to me, so you'd know to trust me. They kind of continue. They're heading on for the quest, and Eldritch is kind of explaining things, and then out of nowhere, he's like, the thing about this labyrinth is that it reflects our memories back. Light becomes dark, and the forgotten becomes remembered. And then there's just a big splash page of more exposition.
Right.
Here.
It's just,
and that's skipping ahead a little bit, but it's just they do the exposition in words, and then for the slow people in the audience, they do the exposition in images.
Right.
And the exposition in images is a little bit different because it's showing what really happened.
Right.
Kind of foreshadowing / giving away the ending.
Yeah, because Fira's entire character is that she is she's a cipher a little bit. She's a warrior and will always fight first. So Fira charges in, and everybody who meets her, kind of talks to her as though she is this horrible monster who has done terrible things. How they have perfect knowledge of her past, I don't know, but
I don't know either.
Yeah. But it is building to a twist that you can see from a mile away, because it just straight up says and shows you that there are terrible things that happened in her past. And obviously, if there's somebody with amnesia who has tragedy in their past, oftentimes they will be responsible for it. So
it shows her straight up just stabbing a dude in a helmet,
right,
in the flashback. So it's like, okay. But before that, so we get a kind of our quest here on what they're doing in the crystalline labyrinth.
Yes.
They're gathering these relics of the Dragon Lord Andolus. They're looking for his tooth, which was fashioned into a dagger that's held by a character called the Dragon Augur.
Okay, I'm down. I'm down for a dragon augur.
I wish he wasn't an augur when we have a scryer.
Yeah,
right next to each other, because those things mean very similar things.
Right.
Those words.
Yeah. Just like dragon augur is a fun thing. It's a little bit like Roger.
Yeah. I'm down. Some of the naming things in this, they sound a little bit like Souls of Darkness names for things to me, but I still am down with, like, there's a later on there's a map. With all these areas that we don't end up visiting. And I'm like, okay, like, as somebody who has explicitly done that, like, I'm going to come up with 10 Dark Souls-y sounding places. I get the fun of that.
Yeah, game respect game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Me and George, man.
Yeah. But they're looking for these relics, all of which are pieces of, the Dragon Lord Andolus, that were, made into weapons or armor, because that's the only thing anything can be made into. And if you, it's implied here and straight up confirmed later, if you gather all these and then do a ritual, you will kind of like reassemble him.
Yes, you had to bring him back so we can get his flame again to relight the world.
Right.
So that's how we're rekindling the fire in this.
Right.
We fight some skeletons on the way here. Pretty uneventful combat.
Right. It's just pretty offhand. Like, here is a single page that is just unsheathing the sword. For some reason, post swing, gung, crack with a big arc, head on the ground, and then dialogue as she's talking about it. There's way too much. Something I really don't like in comics is the dialogue during a fight.
Oh, sure.
And this series does that an awful lot. I don't think that explicitly bothers me. It bothers me here because it is they're kind of bad fights. Like, I think it works. Like, a big thing, the way that happens is Spider-Man, and Spider-Man keeping this running nervous dialogue during a fight kind of works for me. But this doesn't work. And this is something where the art style really falls down, because it's so bad at portraying action. Like, if you look at this middle panel here of her swinging the sword through the skeleton, this kind of like soft focus painterly like thing kind of makes action look like mud. There's no sense of impact that ever happens in this comic. There's no sense of real motion or anything like that. Like, it's very, very poor at portraying movement. And this particular frame is showing every part of the swing. Like, we see the shining arc of her sword. We've got kind of the skull off to the left, her in the middle doing this, and then the body to the right. So like it is meant to kind of convey like, hey, this is one big fast motion, but it just feels entirely weightless. You know,
weightless is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it gets worse too. It's not like this isn't as bad as it gets. So the boss battles are worse.
They're pretty bad. We get the frame of kind of her having these memories, these flashes of her looking into a mirror and seeing herself hollowing. We see, a hollow child. We see a dragon. We see a funeral pyre. And then we have our little friend Solaire standing there with people bowing to him.
Yes, all these knights, of which are wearing the same armor that she stabs one of them in the face above.
Right.
So again, here we go. There's the twist. Like, she's the villain. And as she's kind of going crazy here, like, she looks down at her hands are melting, and she sees this kid named Peter running away. So that's not the same as Solaire, I don't think.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, I was confused about that. Okay.
It's a trap in her mind. It's like a memory illusion thing where she runs. One of the like fucking funniest panels in this thing is she runs away from this little kid, runs up and finds Solaire and goes like, "You." And Solaire, our cheerful Solaire, is staying there. He's fucking furious, and the sun on his chest is angry too. Like Wade the Duck in U.S. Acres. Like, whatever emotion Solaire's feeling, his chest. And why is this Solaire?
I have no idea why it's Solaire. Like that. Like, okay, so it's probably not Solaire himself, right? That could just be the armor of whatever he wore. Like the Astora armor or something, like the sunlight armor. I don't know if he. Remind me, Gary. Did he actually stitch the image of that sun onto his own cloak? Like
he made his own equipment.
Okay.
I want to say that's in canon.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's actually stitched on there, but there isn't like an order of knights,
right? Like
there isn't a Solaire order. I mean, there was the sunlight order
that came out, and this is after somebody invokes by the spear of Ornstein later on.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely trying to traffic on
yeah.
Solaire.
Yeah, like this is Solaire. This is like, you know, a big, you know, single page splash where Solaire takes up 2/3 of the screen by menacing over her. Do you think that Solaire, like that is kind of like a dry erase sun, and he just very quickly like takes like a little grease pencil and draws whatever emotion he wants on there?
That'd be great.
Because it's not like the actual sun that we see on there is, you know, explicitly cheerful. Like it's very
no, this is just it's a little bit angrier enough to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, just on regular Solaire, it's just like an impassive face that he has.
Yes.
You know, that
neutral
has.
Solaire.
Yeah. Whereas this is like, you know,
yeah, this it's explicitly a very angry little sun. It's very funny.
We should do a Photoshop of this with the angry sun from Mario 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I tweeted a picture of him yesterday, and somebody responded with the angry sun from Mario 3.
Ah, okay.
It was a pretty. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So they get into a fight, and it's just this is a lot of dialogue with them, like kind of clanging swords.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just him saying like, you know, the knights called for your help, you never came, you weren't a good mother. Or like she's like, you know, or why didn't you come? And she's like, I had my children to worry about. He's like, what made you think you could have children as a knight?
Like, you dealer of death, bringing life to this world.
Yes, it very, very weird.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff. This is the kind of dialogue that I don't like, where it is kind of like a clash of ideologies or an exposition, you know, like between characters that is done as they are, you know, exerting themselves by swinging the swords. Like I don't care for that one bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a pretty obnoxious cliche.
Yeah.
But again, there's no weight to the action at some point or anything like that.
There's so little weight that the death blow, like Fira's death blow of choice, is to throw her sword, which kind of like, oh, so you just didn't want to pose her actually like getting up there and doing this, or like set it up like this. Like it is a dramatic frame composition because you get to have that nice foreshortened sword coming into it, but like, you know. It's not anything that happens ever.
Yeah, she throws it at a stalactite or stalagmite that falls and crushes Solaire and reveals him to be a bunch of crystals as an illusion.
Right.
Shatters him into a bunch of pieces. So apparently we're dealing with crystal illusion golems. So yeah, that's kind of all that happens with that. It just, you know, we needed a fight scene. It's been 2 pages. And this is really obnoxious. Like, you know, so earlier Aldrich was like, I don't fight. Which like Aldrich does fight if he's Aldrich. And she's like, leave the fighting to me. He shows up. She's like, where were you? He says, you told me to leave the fighting to you. I didn't mean it. Little joke. And then he says, while you were busy with that fight, I found a route through the labyrinth. And then they just skip the labyrinth.
Yep.
What the fuck? That's the thing. It's not how labyrinths work.
This is such a thing in this miniseries. Like, I understand you're only working with 4 issues. Scale it back then, because they're pretty much always just falling ass backwards or skipping right to the goal. So like what you get is we are here to collect the scale of Tiras Macaw. And then, okay, well, we have this terrible dungeon in front of us. And then Tiras Macaw comes down and says, hey, here's my scale.
That literally happens. Yeah. Like there's a part where they just happen to coincidentally be where he get kidnapped by the guy who has the next thing, who brings them to the next thing. It is so convenient and shitty. Yeah. Hey, I solved that labyrinth. Like while during that 45 seconds of battle. Here, I remember how to do it though. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So then they go to the Dragon Augur, and I want to talk just a second about the character designs. This that have none of the goodness of Dark Souls character designs.
Yeah, there's no dignity to this.
This guy looks like a fucking Warcraft character.
Yep,
Cole.
he does. He certainly does.
And that's bad. Because those characters look bad. Those are bad armors.
Yep, he's mostly shoulder, and he's got a gigantic helmet with horns. Yeah, or like his helmet is like it's crafted to be like a crystalline dragon skull, but he is defined by shoulders, helmet, and shield, which is what a Warcraft character is.
Or I mean, let's be a little bit nicer. He looks like a Lords of the Fallen character.
Ah, there we go.
Like specifically, like he looks like that shield is like a Lords of the Fallen ass shield. It just doesn't have and none of the bosses we're gonna fight.
Right.
And this is something too. And I don't know if the versions you read have this, but my versions have these little back matter, like this bonus material.
Yeah.
In them. I think some of this is not George Mann's fault. I think it's the artist's fault.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene later, the boss of the second issue, there's George Mann's description of it, and then you get to see what's on the page. And the artist did not do a good rendering of what he described. So this might not be George Mann's fault. This could be the artist.
Yeah.
All of these kind of shitty designs. And it's like, okay, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. As a holistic thing, it's really disappointing.
Yeah.
What he's also not defined by is auguring. Because that word has meaning, and he doesn't do any auguring. He's just a big knight.
Yeah. I almost wonder if this particular design is actually supposed to be a quote of Vengarl.
I don't think it looks very Vengarl-y.
Yeah, I'm looking at a comparison. Like, this is definitely Lords of the Fallen, but Vengarl also wears a helmet that is a dragon's, a dragon's
the helmet is the closest part.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't get you forgotted.
Yeah. He's also, his armor doesn't cover all of him. Like, he's mostly bare chested and stuff. It doesn't make any sense. So he's talking about he's doing villain shit. Talking to him like, Lady Knight, you have no, like, it's empty.
You speak with a confidence you can ill afford, Lady Knight.
Very generic these and thou battle stuff. And he sends a crystal golem up behind her of Eldritch.
Yes.
And she stabs it. And later, that's going to pay off later in a way that's really dumb. It makes no sense for her character.
Yeah, because Aldrich actually asked, like, "Hey, how did you know that was fake?" Like, "Oh, I didn't."
Yeah, and however, you need Eldritch to do this. Like, you should care about Eldritch's, whether you stab him in the stomach.
Yeah.
There's also, this has one of my least favorite panel compositions. Over on the page where the stabbing happens, you see the augur there, and then below that there's a panel of her getting snuck up on. But everybody looks the same. The color palette is so awash in this kind of like, it's very hard to have things defined.
Yeah, purple. It's just all purple light is what we're getting here. Yeah.
So it's hard to tell who's being snuck up upon.
Right.
It looks a little bit like the augur is being snuck up upon by Aldrich. You can tell that's not the case by dialogue, but the fact that the head is right above in this kind of thing, and then it leads into the panel of the torso, makes it like associates those two things.
Yeah.
And just, it's very confusing to tell where anything is in relation to anything else, which is really like, that's like half your battle in doing comic art, know?
Yeah. I wonder if that was intentionally done to be like a reveal or something like that.
But then they literally just do it again at the end.
Yep.
Like, if that's the case, that's so bad. Because then that's how this battle actually ends, spoiler, is with Aldrich sneaking up on Augur.
Aldrich, who doesn't fight.
Yes, Aldrich, who gets in a good stab. So a big fight where everyone's floating in a void.
Yeah.
Where is the ground in these panels? I
have no idea. Like, it literally just looks like, it's a little bit of the Advent Children problem, which is we want to have what appears to be a dynamic frame composition, but in order to make it fit into any kind of like vertical kind of space, we just have to have like everybody be doing these leaping attacks.
Yeah, constantly leaping and jumping at each other. In that weighty tactical Dark Souls combat.
Yeah,
where everyone's constantly doing like ninja jumps at each other. Yeah. Look at this panel where she says, like this drawing of her falling backwards. Like, whoa. Does that look like she was just shield bash, or does that look like she's
Oh, it looks like she slipped on a banana peel.
Yeah, it's cartoonish and shitty.
Yeah, more like nitpick side chat.
These are not nitpicks, though. This is what you have to do to make good comic art. So Augur's about to deliver the death blow. She's not doing very good against this Augur.
No.
And then Aldrich sneaks up and stabs him in the throat.
Yeah. Shink.
That's the sound effect for being stabbed in the throat.
Yeah. Through armor, maybe? I don't know. Like, it looks like he's just stabbing the jaw of the helmet.
Yeah. It doesn't look like this guy got hurt at all.
Yeah.
From this.
Yeah. But this ends with how did you know it wasn't me? She says I didn't. Oh well, they're both so determined to complete this quest that they will make it impossible to complete this quest.
The quest. Yeah. In order to complete the quest.
I'm gonna fail on my own terms. Damn it.
Yeah, you can't fire me.
You can't fire me. I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this ends with like just a very weird sequel hook, like for like the end of an issue for a multi-part thing. Like, alas, it has only just begun. The Everlord awaits us in his weeping forest. Okay.
Oh, thank God. When are we going to get to the Everlord? Right here with issue 2.
Yeah. with issue 2, where they are in this kind of crazy tumor forest.
Yes, yeah, and this is the issue that has the map where it shows the different kind of areas, which is like kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like that in fantasy things, and we don't go to all of these places. Like we don't go to the Living City or the Blackened River.
Yeah,
Asher's Way, things like that.
I do like the idea of the Living City.
Yeah. If it was actually a living city and not just like it's just called that because the people aren't hollow.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, I like either or. I like the idea of it getting a name. By being a city of the living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you always hear the city of the dead. So they're in this kind of tumor forest, and just any excuse to just not have relevant background details. Like there can just kind of be like squigglies in the background. They only fight in areas where there's squigglies.
Oh yeah.
And Eldritch is doing scrying.
Yeah, he's sacrificing a baby wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. To figure out where to go.
Yeah. And they're amassing their kind of arsenal with this. Fira has the sword. This is kind of a very non-eventful kind of issue. Honestly, for as much as it is like just the same page run, most of it is drawings of spiders. But we do get this retelling of Karamas's quest.
Yes.
This dude who basically does what we read in that opening scroll.
Fire.
Yeah, Link the Fire.
Like Link the Fire in this version of Link the Fire.
Yeah.
It doesn't. They're trying to do something where they do the same story over and over and reveal a little bit more each time.
Mm-hmm.
Something fell apart with that because this does not seem adequately different than last time.
No.
But it's presented as if he's like, do you recall when I told you about Karamas? Well, there's more. And then more or less tells the same thing with a little bit more context.
Yeah.
Like a little bit about him being sad and his villagers dying and stuff, and him being guilty.
What it feels like is, okay, they wrote the script for the entire 4-issue run, and then they did the initial issue as it was, and said, hey, this could be confusing. We need to have the context. So the opening scroll came later.
Yeah.
Like as a way to like set the stage for what was happening here.
Yes. They were not confident enough to start out kind of a medias race.
Right.
With this.
Yeah. So like if you just pretend that opening scroll didn't exist, all of a sudden these kind of vague nouns are introduced here, and we're getting just like a little bit more context for it. That would help us get more weight.
Yes.
I don't like an opening scroll very much.
No. I think that is the last refuge of a scoundrel. But yeah. And the other thing that's revealed, it's not part of that backstory, but the idea is Eldritch is telling Fira, if we restore the fire, we get this breath of Andolus. Not only is it going to, save the world, but it's going to bring your order back.
Right.
Everybody's going to give you back. All your pets will be there. Like, it's going to be phenomenal. And she's like, okay, I want this. But the idea is they don't have enough of the dragon. They have to get all 3 artifacts.
Yeah. So they're here to defeat the Everlord, who carries a sword that is made of Andolus's shin bone. Yes.
Yeah. Through this forest, they walk through and another big fight with these spiders that like, it just isn't. It's not very Dark Souls-y. Just like there's kind of something a little bit weird about the spiders. They have big lava mouths.
Yeah.
But they just look like big spiders.
Yeah.
And
it's a little bit Soulsy because she will she screams at one of them, back to the bed of chaos from which you came.
Yeah.
Back to the chaos bed from which you came, or something like that.
Yeah. Look at here's a real serious failure of impact and weight. On the splash page with the 2 spiders are attacking.
Okay.
The 2 panels in the center on the way back. Mm-hmm. The one on the left, look at her just kind of like lean back. She's like reeling back to do a blow. Uh-huh. What is this pose she's in? That she's stabbing? Is she just reclining into stabbing the spider?
I don't know. It looks like she's trying to like tap him with the sword at the back to get a little bit of his fire to attack the one in front of her. Like,
if that's what happens.
Oh no, it's totally not. Yeah, I'm just joking.
I think she just leans the sword into him. Like just kind of like
you're next. She's like she's Babe Ruth calling the shot.
Yeah. Like, this pose, she's her reclining into battle here. This pose is just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, this is some Liefeld shit, man.
Yeah. Well, also
Like-
Liefeld, I love in the panel where she screams "die" and leaps at the enemy. The way that her hips are kind of cocked to just give us a nice little like undercloak.
Butt lift.
Yeah, exactly.
She's presenting.
Yeah, it's a
like,
butt lift. We're just getting she's flashing her badge, you know.
something for daddy.
Yeah, it's just
Something for Aldrich.
yeah. I don't know. It just like it's not like there's skin revealed, but like it's very contoured armor. Like, and I admit that I'm being way too sensitive to it, but
Well, that's the thing is Dark Souls doesn't really do that.
right.
Like, it's not just is it just kind of generally distasteful, but like Dark Souls armor always has weight and looks like something somebody can wear.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the point of it. Like right above that, where Aldrich is being swarmed by baby spiders. Like, I think your words are true, lady, but we are grossly outnumbered, because he's just saying that while these tiny spiders are crawling all over him.
Maybe he's casting a spell and summoning some enemies that are summoning some spiders to help.
There we go. Those spiders are like spilling out of his loin breeches.
Yep.
He's casting like Warden Kanan's scrawling dick. Like,
oh jeez. Yeah.
And this is one of the worst fight scenes in the series.
Yeah.
Where is the spider that catches Aldrich? I don't fucking know. And it also it eats him. Like, he's shown to be webbed up. So Aldrich is on the left, is implied to be on the left of where she is. The spider is on the right. She attacks the spider, and then we just get a flash cut to Aldrich being consumed by the spider. But the spider's not been established anywhere.
There are 3 spiders in play, but we only ever see her focusing on one.
It's just a really bad job of like setting the battlefield.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know how sneaky those spiders that are the size of a house are.
Yeah, you know how sneaky houses are in general.
They're all over the place, and you don't even know it.
I almost saw an apartment complex yesterday, and it scared the shit out of me. Yeah, it's extremely bad.
Yeah.
So she fights. Aldrich is caught, and she's like, "I'm coming," but then just decides not to. And then finished off the spiders, but one of them clearly got away because now she's lost Aldrich.
Right. She's also poisoned at this point, I think.
Yeah. She's poisoned, so it'll slow her reflexes, which doesn't have any bearing on anything that happens.
Right. But she, tracks him down to the lair that is full of these tiny little spiders. This is, like a Quelaag's lair or something like that.
Yeah.
And finds him and, wake up. If you die, and importantly, I'm blind without thee. As she, wakes him up, and then we have all these hollows who have been captured as well, kind of awakening from their cocoons. Could be cool.
Yeah, it's not. Like, hollows are something that like makes sense with all of the context of Dark Souls, but if you put them into another medium, they just become zombies.
Right.
And it makes them boring.
Yeah.
And we're skipping over a lot of dialogue, but the dialogue in these fights are just like, "So my sword is thirsty, is it? Well, yes. I'll make sure it drinks its fill upon thy blood.
If ye were hungry, ye need only have asked. /
Yeah, like this. All of the dialogue is like that, and maybe there's somebody who's playing Dark Souls who imagines that kind of shit, but not me.
We should do a stream like that.
Fair.
So it's
Blade. She talks to her sword a lot.
Yeah.
Blade, I hope thou hast appetite yet for killing. Okay. Hast appetite yet for killing.
Yeah.
Thou art wounded, a mere scratch. Like, this dialogue is so like these and thous always kind of roll off my head. Roll off my ears. Like, it's very, very hard to just keep up with this.
They're not very additive when they're used in Dark Souls dialogue itself. What sells it is the voice delivery, and oftentimes for me, like the way that the sound is treated, like the way that it kind of resonates in the area. Just kind of sounds
like it's coming from a big helmet or whatever.
Yeah. Like, I can take or leave the these or thous, but there's always something to ameliorate that. Just kind of scrawled out on a page, it looks incredibly unnatural.
Yeah,
coming out of it.
It's super sparse in the game.
Yeah.
Like here, this is a huge concentration of dialogue, so it's like the weaknesses of it, and just this machismo is so like not even like badass characters in Dark Souls. When somebody is really confident when you fight them, they don't have this kind of like, my sword will take your blood, like kind of, again, this kind of machismo to it.
Right.
That just doesn't fit. So they just kind of get away from the hollows. She slashes them up a bunch, and then this thud is the sound of the actual Everlord.
If he just comes to them, like we've killed enough enemies for the boss to spawn.
That's exactly it. And this is where she goes. The forest succumbs to the plague of death. So does the Guardian. The spiders here were its eyes. Killing them, we've drawn its attention by Ornstein's lugged spear. So I was trying to figure that out, and I had a bit of a Twitter thing on it because I was like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. Like, lugged is not the word you want for this. Is it because he lugged it? And then someone pointed out, like, maybe it's a mistranslate. It's supposed to be rugged because of the Japanese LR thing.
Oh, no. I mean, this was written...
And this was written by an American-ass dude, but in the description of the wolf ring, or of the one of the rings, maybe it's the Leo ring, it says Leo or Ornstein's lugged spear. And then Riff pointed out that a lugged spear is actually a kind of spear, but it's not the kind of spear Ornstein has. So it's like you have this, like, I step back from this like corkboard with all these yarn and note cards, and it just ends up to something dumb, like no matter what,
Yeah, it's like,
no matter how deep it goes.
You just needed an adjective.
Yeah. He drew it directly from the item description.
Yeah.
So it's like he just got this, like, this text dump of the game to draw from.
Oh wow.
Is what it feels like.
I'm actually looking. So I did a Google image search. If you do a search for lugged spear, there's an image from the Fextra Life wiki that has somebody dressed up like Ornstein wielding Ornstein's kind of spear. There's and it's redlined like a 4chan conspiracy image with a circle drawn around, like almost like the the hilt. That's a little bit down from it, and it's just like, and then just a white box says lugs. So maybe, so maybe it's lugged. I don't know.
Riff was saying that it doesn't seem to appear like as if it is an actual lugged spear.
Yeah.
So it just I would chalk that up to like Miyazaki kind of culture mashing.
Okay.
Like him just kind of like being into putting together, because it's a Norse thing, I want to say.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of bashing all this stuff together. But the fact that it's made it into this comic makes it such an awkward line.
Oh yeah.
Like, by Ornstein's lugged spear. Is that just something that people say in this world? Are you out of your mind?
Well, I mean, she had to be specific, because if she just said by Ornstein's spear, they would have to say, well, Ornstein actually used many spears.
His business spear or his pleasure spear? Which one was it? Some beers are weekend spears. But then the Everlord just shows up again. The boss is just coming to them, and I hate the way this fucking thing looks.
Yeah.
Like, this is something where the color palette and that painterly style gets in the way, because there's just not enough contrast to this guy.
No,
he just looks like a blob of plant matter.
Yeah, he's just he's a giant that appears to be made entirely of like roots. Which, okay, fine. There's like a chaos beast or whatever, and he has these gigantic horns, kind of coming off of him, and he has magma coming out of his mouth. When we see him, he is like the pose that he's in is especially confusing, because he's wheeling back to like slash down with his sword. However, all we see is the hilt, so it actually looks like a weird little shoulder piece coming out of him. Like, it's a sword, but we don't actually see any of the sword aside from just this weird green mass that appears to be a part of him.
He's holding it behind his back at a weird angle, and then when the sword strike actually happens, it's a two-handed strike. So it's like, not only does it it doesn't work there, and his face is explicitly demon-like.
Yeah,
like he looks like a demon. A Dark Souls-esque demon, but with a plant body, which, like, there is a connection between plants and demons in Dark Souls, but there aren't plant demons.
Right.
I know that sounds nitpicky, but like these things, they matter. Like, it's not that's not what the demons are. Like, they're not plant creatures. Plant creatures are chaos, like, are the bed of chaos specifically, or some other chaos thing. So
yeah.
Anywho,
but this is just a gigantic dude who they have to fight.
Yeah, a big fight where the way you fight gigantic things in Dark Souls, like, you're around their legs and stuff, and she's never that. No, she's always leaping up into the air to do face-to-face fights with him. Yeah,
she's Advent Child fighting is what she is. She's like jumping, like, oh, I'm jumping off of your knee and I'm slashing the knee and I'm jumping off of your shoulder, shrip, and then up at the top. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm going to weightlessly decapitate you as, like, leaves fly out instead of blood.
when she decapitates him, it's one of my favorite moments in this because one panel is the head coming up, and then the next one it's further up, like it just went straight up. Up to sky.
I want to get your blood pressure checked if being decapitated launches your head into space.
Yes, like
laugh while thou canst, creature. Without thy head, 'twill not be easy. Crack.
It will not be easy. And then I defy anyone to explain how she got stabbed in that.
Yeah, because she's flying free. Like, she's 10 feet above the dude.
Yeah, like there's no place for that to have happened. But the big reveal, the cliffhanger is she's been stabbed at the end.
Yeah, she's been Dante stabbed.
Yes,
it's through her abdomen.
Yeah, and Al just goes no, and that's like, oh no, will our brave hero make it? So the end of this has a little poem about the weeping forest.
Yeah,
which is like not particularly good. And then this has the them talking about the making of the Everlord here, and this is where you get the comparison of George Mann's description, which is much more like it has that you can almost see him trying to go for that dignity thing.
Yeah.
Like he's rotting mold and spores dripping from his leaf-like lips, fungus growing out of his body. He's the raw spirit of a dying land, and he's angry.
Yeah.
That does not come across in this powerful plant demon.
No, it doesn't.
You know, it's made of plants, but it has none of that kind of like sadness or rot to it.
Yep.
And then if you look, you can see the colored picture and the black and white picture, and you can see that the black and white picture shows it a little bit better as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that a lot of the failings of the actual models or rendering in this is that overly photoshopped, overly rendered coloring.
Yeah. And there's a specific like how we made this section, I think maybe at the end of book 4, that actually shows like the process that they went through to light this. I think that like the lighting is as much of a crime as anything.
Yeah, the lighting is also not good. Altogether, it is a poor artistic taste or choices, and just not very good choices in general. Yeah. Issue 3,
yeah. So let's see what happens. Well, she's undead, so she's going to come back, taking all of the drama away from that.
Yes. She's having another dream. She's a little kid. Her son takes out, and he's like, "Hey, it's time to go outside." She's like, "What is it?" "Oh, it's time. It's time to watch us burn." And shows them all in this pyre. And this is again more foreshadowing the turn that we're gonna get to. As a bunch of soldiers and village people are burning an entire group of hollows alive.
Right. I like the idea of our main character being a mother. Like, you don't see that.
Yeah.
You never get a a sense of somebody's past in these games, right?
I was gonna say that the thing it most reminds me of is Dark Souls 2.
Yep.
Like the opening of Dark Souls 2, and her character is this is a very Dark Souls 2-esque treatment of this character.
Yeah.
Like the actual theming, the place of this where this actually has a point, is Dark Souls 2 as shit.
Yep.
Which is kind of and that's a part of Dark Souls 2 I like. Like you could have done this well. You would need to have better characters and better pace and better like everything else.
Yeah.
But the story of a character who has committed this gigantic, there is like an innate tragedy to the idea of somebody who started, was not hollowing, did these kind of extreme means to stop the curse, and then fell under the curse herself.
Right.
And could not remember that she had done it.
Right.
Like that's good.
That could be the basis for a good character-based story, but that's just not what this is. It's a change in priorities, and that's the only thing that I could think of. When I was kind of evaluating this as a whole, is like I wish that this had a different priority.
Yeah, like somebody more fights. There needs to be a boss fight every issue.
Yeah,
you need to explore these different kind of lands.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is that like there's not enough time for any of these things to have kind of context to them.
But they're still thrown in and treated as though they're supposed to land with a full emotional weight.
Yeah. And that is probably the ultimate failure of this, but I just want to note that is an umbrella that hides a bunch of smaller failures that are also worth talking about. Like that's not the thing that would fix this.
Oh no.
That's the one little seed that's okay that got corrupted until it became the Everlord.
Yeah. I do like the idea. So she wakes up, Aldrich had been taking care of her and doing these rituals, for weeks, we find out, but he is missing. And even though, she is not a living creature anymore, the birds are coming for her remaining flesh.
So they can do a fight with these just birds.
Yep, just gigantic vultures.
Yep, just big giant vultures. Like this, could have been a cool Dark Souls creature.
Yeah,
Twasn't.
Oh, that's the other thing. None of these are Dark Souls monsters.
No, which would have been such an easy thing to take.
Yeah, you
have
so many good monster designs, and it would be recycling or whatever, but it's not like they're subbing in something that's actually cooler than those.
Yeah, exactly. They did the worst of three options. The best option would be to come up with Dark Souls-esque things. The second best would be to use Dark Souls things. The third best, and consequently worse, is just to make up generic bullshit. Right. Like skeletons and demons, and they just look generic. I don't know how she's tracking him. She's like, good thing you left a thing for me to track him, and she picks up this crystal.
Oh,
why could she track him with a crystal?
She's so in previous frames, we've seen Aldrich using that crystal as part of his scrying almost. Yes. We're led to believe that is something that has an affinity that'll show somebody toward what they want. That is the power of the crystal itself.
Him, then?
Yeah.
If anybody can use that crystal, why does she need Aldrich? He's the scryer.
Yeah.
Super horseshit.
Yeah. I mean, it could just be there's a city nearby. I should go and see if anybody's seen him.
100%. There's just so many ways you could do this to be better. Or we're near the fortress of, what I can't remember the name of the place they go to, the actual cathedral or whatever. But we're near there. This would make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to. It's not even the fact that and the fact that actually happens to be the place where the bad guy is ludicrous.
Yeah.
But it just the fact that she went there didn't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Hey Gary. So she. She fights these kind of weird little dreadlord skeleton Hollow Knight kind of things. Why do they have steampunk as gears etched into their armor?
There's no explanation. I thought for a second these were supposed to be the skeletons from 4.2 or 4.1, Storm.
Shrine of Storms.
Shrine of Storms.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were supposed to be for a second, because those guys are always kind of mechanically. But right. I don't think they are. They're much more rendered.
No, I just the fact that there are steampunk gears etched into their armor is kind of upsetting to me.
Not very Dark Souls. This is at this place she goes to, this kind of cathedral, where they have a mural of Gwen on the wall fighting the dragons.
Oh wow.
So okay, there's that. But just in the kind of blocking and when she's fighting these things, look at what's happened. What's the background of this? It's just this kind of green glow.
Yeah, it's it's like the background of a Control Alt Delete comic.
I remember when I collected Ninja Turtles cards when I was really young, the principal turtles, the titular 4.
Yeah.
That this is what their background was. It would just be a turtle floating in this void that was their color. And I was just man, what is why are even I was 8 and I wanted something better than that. But it just you can't have a fight that takes place in a void have any kind of weight.
No.
And it's not used to a purpose or anything either. It feels lazy.
Yeah.
I'm always I don't like saying things are lazy, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah. And also I just realized by looking at this that she stabs one of them. And then and then turns around with him still on the sword and then stabs the other one.
She makes a shish kebab.
Yeah.
And she's even says for Ishra's sake, it's super silly.
Yeah. So Aldrich is in the cell and kind of being lorded over by this witch who invokes Izalith.
Yes.
As Vera comes in and attempts to rescue her squire by not killing the witch, but just punching her lights out.
Yeah, by Izalith's name, silence, crone.
Shunk.
As she's shooting a very non-Izalith, non-Chaos Witch spell at her. And finding out that Aldrich has been scrawling this kind of mythology on the wall.
Right.
For the Phoenix King, this character that's here.
Yeah, Phoenix King, that sounds thematically similar to somebody else that I've heard described.
Yes. Well, and you look at this kind of the scrawl on the side, and it's pretty hard to tell what is getting got to here.
Right. Yeah. What they're trying to convey. It literally just looks like, there's a high place with some flame and some dragons and some cities around it.
Yeah, cities and some people around it, you know. So why the Phoenix King was forcing him to do this rather than just like tell him or write words, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty shitty.
Yeah. There's this faux moral dilemma about, do you release the prisoners or not?
Yeah, they're escaping.
Yeah.
You know, Aldrich has been tortured. You know, there's a little bit of that, and this is where Aldrich reveals, like, oh, the ancient pyre that has the thing, it's here. So okay, great. Yeah, but then the soldiers come up here, which this is such a weird bit. Like, these characters, like, are they trying to start like a side character, you know, or like a side story with I can't remember the name of this guy. I have no idea what this is about.
I mean, like, no, these are just the prisoners who like pop in and say like, oh, please let me out, let me go. And, you know, Aldrich doesn't have any time for it, but Vera wants to reassert her humanity.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea.
Yeah.
But the one of them gets named. Like, he's like, I am the knight of something. Like, he has an order.
Are you thinking of Jarrus later on?
No, Jarrus is specific. What is, let me take a look at
I am Aethel of Lorwick, a knight of the White Circle.
Yeah. Like, why? I don't know.
Yeah. But we specifically learned that this Karamas, you know, the fated king, who, you know, was lit afire, is here. He is the Phoenix King, and we see this little.
What a fucking coinkydink. Oh, you mean the god of this world? The guy who we just happened to get kidnapped at Gwen's house? Great.
Yeah. But he, a little bit like the ceaseless discharge, through his kind of eternal burning that is only held in check by this armor that he's wearing, is, you know, transforming and becoming more monstrous.
Yes. Yeah. And he has to keep the armor on, or otherwise in intense pain. This literally, they find him in a page turn. Like, it's like they're like, he tells them about this character. You know, only the armor can tame the torturous flame. Okay, we must find him. Page turn. She's literally standing in the middle of a boss chamber looking at him. Like, in the space of nothing.
Yep.
Like, the pacing of this is so bad.
Yeah.
Like, everything is too quick or too slow. Nothing is at the right speed. And he just, like, so he's kind of got this spike armor. Yeah. You know, these kind of weird tusks. Like, he almost looks like a cool character. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like a cool mythology important character, though. He looks like a smelter demon.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. In my notes here, I call him a little Nicky demon. Like, just this weird spiky clutter. It looks like some production design from that movie.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah. It's no good. And, you know, he is, you know, again, we have this battle of philosophy as they're, you know, getting ready to fight each other. You know, thou art a shambling corpse, a hollow, you know, that thing clinging to memories of the living, you know, just kind of saying like, oh, what's the point? You're already sick. You're already dead. Nothing matters.
Yep. Because he is the force for letting the fire go out. Essentially, he's saying like, hey, everything's dead. It's too late. We will bring on this age of darkness. I think this is where he says, ask Aldrich about the Age of Deep.
Yeah.
They'll replace this one. And she's saying like, no, I want to read, you know, I'm going to go ahead and relight the fire.
Yeah.
Bring everything back.
Yep. And so we have another kind of like multi-page spread where we have little panel insets of the approach and the you know, the slashes and the fooms and the thuds. We got two thuds. Pretty good.
Hiss.
Hiss, as you know, his smoldering hand holds on to her, cooking her in her armor.
Yes. And however, Aldrich throws her the dagger. The dagger is the only thing that can pierce through him, apparently.
Yeah.
Which, like, why weren't you using that sword you guys just found in this fight? But the dagger can actually pierce through, and cutting the she kind of does the thing where you slide down like Wolverine is always doing.
Yeah. Prince
like
of Persia. Yeah,
Prince of Persia, like down the wall, cuts a hole and lets the flame consume him.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. It's not a decapitation. Like, I like her using the...
Finally.
Finally. Okay, so I'll give it credit. Like, that is an inventive way to kill this boss.
Sure. You know, even though, like, again, she had a sword that would do the same thing, apparently.
Right.
Decided not to do it. They like, hey, our journey is coming to its end. However, there are things we must know. etc. And they look out on the mountains, these volcanoes that are erupting in tandem.
Yep.
Perfect synchronized lava show. And then that's the end of the issue, where in a very video gamey thing, they show us our current inventory.
Our inventory, yes. The dragon tooth dagger, the dragon rib sword.
And they have a little item description.
Yeah.
Things is the idea, even though they're not very flavorful.
No.
Yeah, they don't actually tell very much about the world.
Yeah.
Did you read this like little prose part at the end? I got bored and stopped.
Yep, me too.
Okay.
So if you want to fault us, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
this is so fucking bad and boring, guys. Like I don't. This was very hard.
It really and it was just a recapitulation of what we already knew. These nights of scrutiny hath revealed secrets manifold, hoary knowledge that would shatter the minds of lesser men. Yet no account beguiles further than that of Andolus the Flame Saver. Okay, so we already know what Andolus the Flame. Yup. like it's Tupperware for barbecue.
Yeah, like he's like, I call this the Flame Saver. Points to the shitty soul patch, like
the Flame Saver.
Like, man, you guys tease us for saying evocative too much. But this is what happens when you don't consider that.
Oh man. So why don't we let's finish this out.
Yeah, with issue 4.
Yeah.
They're on this big mountain, and the sky is going all crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the sky, if you look real closely, or not closely at all, the pattern of light looks like a dragon.
Yes.
And he's speaking in, it's the boxes here, the narration, it's in green, which we see later, like this is Andolus the Flame Saver speaking from the future. So, whenever we see the green there, that is who we're hearing.
That's Andolus, yeah. So the Flame of Life is, it's 2 minutes to midnight in the Doomsday Clock. It's the same kind of Dark Souls 3 thing. Everything is going to shit.
Yep.
They're heading up these stairs to go reignite the dragon. Literally, she's like, here's a clang, and says, the call of battle cannot be ignored. We're so close to our goal, we cannot be dissuaded now. A momentary diversion is all I need. Someone may require aid. And just runs off to do this side quest, where this character we haven't seen before, who just kind of comes out of nowhere, is fighting these very generic trolls.
Yeah. Like these Triclopses.
Yeah.
But like, okay, so I didn't read to me that she was going there to save Jairus, this other knight that we find out is of her order. I just thought that she was like, I can't ignore a fight, and
and Aldrich, that's what she says.
There we go, yeah. And Aldrich is like, hey, we need to speed run this.
Yeah, but then she says somebody might need help.
Yeah,
but so I took it as like, I hear music, I'm going to dance.
Yeah.
And then, but turns out there's a guy there who's wearing the armor of her order.
Right. She's like, hey, you stole that, you dishonored the person who initially wore it. And he's like, oh, the fact that you're still alive means that everybody's dead. Fuck.
Yeah. look at his face in the panel to the right where they're talking like, thou shalt perish upon my blade. I, such as the fate of many who, of our order. He looks so fucking bored to have a knife at his throat.
Just another day. Oh.
Yeah, just another day. Fighting trolls and getting knife throated.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, he's going to tell her the truth. Aldrich is doing the generic, like, no, he seeks to poison your mind.
Yeah.
He won't tell you the truth. I can only tell you the truth. But they go back to camp, and he reveals the twist of the series.
Yes, which is that pyre that we saw before was not, something that was just kind of done, by a mob. She was actually leading the effort to try and cleanse the village, and in the process, fought off the knights and, burned them as well.
Yes. Because they thought that's how the curse spread.
Yep. Again, Dark Souls 2 as fuck.
Yeah, super Dark Souls 2. Like this could be, Harrowmark, I think is the name of the town, like could be a cut Dark Souls 2 area. Yeah. If it wasn't for Eldritch being in this would be like a Dark Souls 2 comic.
Yeah.
And this is not us just Dark Souls 2 cheerleading. Like, this would not be a good comic if it was a Dark Souls 2 comic.
No, it would at least, well, I mean, it's barely a Dark Souls 3 comic anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the redeemable factor of this is this idea. or like the one little seed of something that's good is this idea of this character that, does not play off very well at all.
No.
But so that's pretty much it. And she's still kind of losing her mind. It's kind of we don't know what's going on, and Aldrich says like, that your family's waiting for you, etc. So she's still kind of under the spell of this. However, Aldrich tips his hand and tries to kill Jarrus.
Yes. And like, and that literally is just like, well, you're not going to be able to finish this ritual without me. So if you're going to go do it, you need me alive.
Yeah. So at this point, they are enemies. They continue through, but she knows the truth,
right?
About Aldrich, and it's like, I'm going to still continue this fight. I've come this far, but it's kind of taking a little bit of the meaning out of it. Now that I know that I killed my family and all.
Yep. So let's just that changes the stakes. Okay. Again, none of this has the weight necessary to actually, to actually let us know that is informing her choice that she has to make.
Yeah. And she's not a character that I give half of a shit about.
Right.
They get to the top of the volcano. They get to the pyre. Aldrich does the ritual, which is essentially just burning the artifacts.
Yeah.
And Andolus comes out.
Yes.
This dragon flies, comes to life.
Yep. Gigantic talking dragon, so they can have one last battle of of morality. Yeah. There's a kind of goofy panel here. It's actually a 2-page spread where we actually see like the panels on his wing. On his wings are like panels of a story. It's almost like a triptych kind of thing. If anything of import was being communicated, that would actually be kind of cool. But no, it's just pictures of people killing dragons and shit.
Yes, I think the idea is just that he's done this a bunch because it's this version of the cycle.
Right.
How many of these have there fucking been? Like, this is the third of these. Like, somebody has a revelation or somebody does something and they just show a bunch of the future in these panels. Like, it feels like very sloppy storytelling to me.
Yeah.
And he says, hey, you want my fire? So be it. It looks like he's going to breathe fire on her, but instead he shunts out of the mountain, flies out for a big dragon fight.
Yep. So, how do you fight dragons? You wait for them to come down for you. You fire a bow and arrow. You use a special weapon. You hobble them in some way. That last one is kind of what ends up happening. Again, we have Fira's preferred strategy of throwing her weapons straight into the air with perfect velocity, and this one small little tear in his wing grounds him.
Yes, and that's really it. It happens very quick. He breathes these little tiny jets of fire. That she has to dodge, but that's really it.
Right.
And then Aldrich is like, hey, finish it. And fucking nowhere. Like, she's like, who am I to make this decision? What gives me the right to strike this beast down and offer the world a temporary reprieve from darkness that ails it?
Yeah.
A salve, but not a cure. Or to accept our lot and wander this land as the tortured dead, knowing in doing so we have offered salvation to future generations. And the flame of life is once more kindled and strong.
No, it's not.
That is my redemption.
That's not what you're doing. You're describing like you're saying, oh, do I go to the baseball game or do I go to the baseball game? Like,
yeah, it's. I mean, it has to do with this. Like, I have no idea how in canon any of the mythology of this stuff is. I'm assuming none.
Yeah.
But this explicitly says at the end, like, hey, Age of Darkness is something you just come back with the Age of Light.
Yeah.
Which, like, of course that happens. That's, Dark Souls 3 says that as well in the endings. We talked about that. But somehow that makes this seem even more shallow to see it dramatized like this. Mm-hmm. Like, as a gameplay mechanic, like, you have all these other things, or as a gameplay thing, a narrative part of a game, it makes more sense. You're playing the experience. The ending's going to have meaning, but that's not necessarily why you're there.
Right.
To have it in this, like, very narrative weighty experience and have her just be like, no, this really makes a difference, when in 2 pages they're going to literally tell us it doesn't make a difference, is like insulting as like a storytelling thing.
Yeah.
It's very bad.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, it's being set up as a choice between, to kindle the fire or the Dark Lord. They're like, there's no distinction between the two of them that's being conveyed here.
Yeah. And it even, again, in text, it just says there's no distinction at the end.
Yeah.
So Aldrich's like, fine, I'll do it. Really stupidly runs up with a dagger behind her, to to get the blade from her. Like, instead of like trying to convince her, he just like runs up, and she does her signature move of holding her sword behind her and having an Eldritch run into it.
Real
Chekhov's front stab.
Yeah, and this is done, like, again, this is an echo of what we saw before a little bit, but like it's done over the course of like a panel. Like, she's standing there, soliloquizing, and then just boom, brings it around. It's so physically implausible. And again, weightless. As Aldrich says, give me thy blade, I shall see to.
Yep. Yeah. He falls down. The guy who's with her is like, I'll take care of it, I'll kill him, and she says no, let him live. Life will be a greater burden, and apparently he goes on to do Dark Souls 3 shit. Andolus gets up, just kind of crankily crawls back into his cave like Sleepy Boy. And then this is where he undermines the entire thing. Like, listen to these sentences. So the cycle is broken, years of darkness lie ahead, but soon enough the warmth of the flame will spread and a new dawn will come to the land. That's not what a cycle being broken means, dog. That's literally just a cycle.
Yeah.
God. Only the gods know what the future holds. And the circle and all things shall tell. The end. So the cycle continues because the cycle continues, and then that's really it.
Yep. Yeah, Gary, this is no good.
This is no good.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Again, I will cop to wanting something else, wanting something different than what they actually did. It feels a little bit like they did that bad adaptation thing of carrying the wrong thing forward by focusing on the combat, when in reality, when you have something like this where you can tell a story with dialogue in a way that Dark Souls doesn't, or with architecture, or with any of that, like making it more of a talky character-based thing that actually explores what it is like to be cursed, as opposed to just being, somebody who is cursed with immortality to go and do this, awesome death stuff, trying to save the world. Like, I want a smaller story, not just a very compact retelling of the quest to get the 3 things to end the cycle. I wish that they would have, maybe not aimed higher, just aimed different.
Yeah, I mean, I need different and higher.
Yeah.
Like, this is a failure as a combat comic as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, even it wasn't just the focus was in the wrong place, but there weren't enough. It's just not done very well. And so maybe they would have been better at doing that kind of dialogue based thing. Like, something like very early on, like a lot of people would ask, like, oh, if there's a Dark Souls comic, what would you want it to look like? Like, people would ask me that on Twitter.
Yeah. And people asked us that like at the live show too. Like, it's been around. And I just like a big, like, Mobius dialogue free, like huge pages.
Yeah. And just exploring this thing and turn the reader into the player, where you have to kind of pay attention to figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And you can do that in ways that aren't just like, glyphs on walls that just tell the story. Like you would just have to take one little bit of that, like the unique way that Dark Souls can tell a story, that other games don't, and other media, doesn't really, and lean into that. But this feels like nothing. Like, literally nothing that's special about Dark Souls is brought forward in this comic.
No.
Like, it's not the like cool monster designs. It's not the the atmosphere is not good. Mm-hmm. Like this kind of like abstract places they move through.
Yeah. Well, also like this is an empty world that is devoid of history. You know, like we're in a crystalline labyrinth. We're in a forest. We're in a fortress. For this Phoenix game, that's the closest they get to it.
Yeah. And it just does not feel good. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
There's nothing to it. Like there's nothing more to it. Like, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't read well. It's a good story. It doesn't look good. Like, individual frames can look good. Art is the one thing I've ever heard anyone defend on this thing. And like, there are ways in which this kind of overly rendered style, there are individual panels that look kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the posing, the blocking, where anything is in relation to each other, the panel-to-panel storytelling, all of that stuff falls down, which is a huge part of art, and I would argue is much more important than just rendering a still image when it comes to sequential art.
No joke, yeah. I mean, and like, I think that even if they had just gone a little less crazy with the Photoshop lighting effects, the fact that they still left in like some of the sketchy bits, I think that is probably, that's like what I latched onto and I said, okay, some of this looks kind of cool, but it's just caked over with so much makeup.
Yeah. Makeup is a good way to put it. Like, it is it's 2 inches deep. It's that prostitute from 1984.
Oh yeah.
Whereas like he's looking out the window and there's that painted lady, and then like when he gets close, it's all like cracked and garbo. Yeah, it's extremely bad. The next one I have is Legends of the Flame. The last issue of this has a advertisement for Legends of the Flame.
Okay.
Which makes me think that, maybe that was the sequence, or there's something to to that. But regardless of which, I'm kind of interested in reading that if it's not continuing the story. The cover of that shows the Ferrum Warrior fighting something that looks like the Iron Golem.
Okay.
A little bit. Which is like, okay, and it's called Legends of the Flame. Like if this is just a like, here's a little dramatization of like 4 NPCs from Dark Souls, that would still have more value to me while still not being particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Like I'd still like, I'll read this little thing about Tarkus, if that's what this is. Like, I don't think that is what it is, but that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And maybe this comes together once you read all 12. You read the 3 little acts and it comes together in some way that is slightly more meaningful, but I don't have a lot of hope.
No.
I've likely already bought them all. Like they're probably all in my box as things. So since the fact that I already own them, like I will read them.
Yeah. And like I don't already own them. I'm probably going to do it because it's such a small investment to like see if they do pull it out, to see if there is some kind of, once they got this poison out, if they do something that's just a little bit better. But the fact that it's the same talent, the same people, makes me hesitant.
It would be like, I like the idea of living in a world with cool Dark Souls media that isn't the game. We don't live in that world though.
No.
And it's a bummer. Like it's a bummer, but like it's a tempered bummer because doesn't matter that much. Not really.
No.
Like the games stand up on their own. They're good on their own. And a lot of this kind of marketing stuff, the slashy Souls things, like I'm never somebody who thinks that like it actively detracts from the main thing.
Right.
Like no matter how, this doesn't make Dark Souls 3 worse.
No.
Later seasons of The Simpsons don't make season 7 of The Simpsons bad.
Right.
But it is kind of obnoxious just in terms of opportunity cost, because even if they were later to do a good version of this, you would have to say like, no, stay away from that one. This is the good exactly. One. Yeah. Like even if the later volumes of this are good, you'd have to be like, no. Legends of the Flame is pretty good, but stay away from Andolus's breath.
Yeah.
It's always going to have the idea of a Dark Souls comic will always have an asterisk next to it.
Yeah.
Because of this, and that sucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it.
Yeah. Pretty big bummer. I mean, they read quick because they're all fights and stuff like that. It's not a huge investment.
No.
So that's the other reason why, like when you say it's not a big investment, it's not financially or chronologically.
Yeah.
Does it take very much out of you to read these? It's not painful. But it never approaches like so bad it's good or anything either.
Right.
There's when I was tweeting about it, I had that picture of Solaire. Like someone mentioned, like thought it was actually like, oh, the sun on his chest makes the same emotion he's having, and like that is 1,000 times more fun than any idea that's in this. Like,
oh yeah,
it's really hard to explain exactly how dour the experience of these things are, or how dour the tone is. Like it is a very serious comic.
Yeah.
And we made some fun of it, but there is very little fun on the page.
Right. Yeah, it was fun to talk about at the very least. As much as I tire of the negativity, it's also fun to, poke holes and to use it as an object lesson, to set the floor. Right.
Yeah, I think so. So hopefully, and we've also at the very least done a bit of a service, I think, for this, because given the reaction, when we start talking about doing this, a lot of people have not actually bought this, and we can say, hey, don't do that, just listen to this instead.
Right.
Like this will do it for you. I don't think you're missing very much.
Yep.
So next episode, thanks for listening to us, and thanks for listening this whole season for this kind of side path season. Next episode, we're starting our month of Salt. We're doing our 3 episodes on Salt and Sanctuary and 1 appendix. If you have comments on Salt and Sanctuary, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact, please.
Yes. If you want to support the network and the show, you can go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv, where you can kick us any amount of money that you want. But there are certain tiers where you get certain things. Gary, if you open Slack, you will see a list of people that we're going to thank. Yes. Yeah. So if you back at $10, you can get a thanks on some episodes. So I'd like to thank Zach Johnson.
Yes.
Yep.
Love Zach.
Yeah. Our friend and yours, Zach.
Yeah. Chris Taps, Otrops, which is I'm sure is a real name, but sounds like a name that's supposed to be backwards or something like that, which I really like. But thank you, Chris Taps. Really do appreciate it.
Yep. Allison Baker.
Love Allison.
Yeah.
Allison is the best.
She just shared a new Lego creation, a kind of a almost like a chibi Solaire.
Yeah, chibi Lego Solaire. Yeah. She the Lego Dark Souls.tumblr.com. Allison is the best.
Yeah. Evan Jones Thorne, regular contributor to Radio Free Midworld and all around great dude.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And then finally, Justin.
Hi, Justin.
Just Justin. Hey, Justin. How's it going?
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, thanks everybody who supports us. It is a big deal. It is life changing. And at some point, you keep hearing us say those things, and it maybe will sound rote, but it's not, because it is all still true.
Yeah.
And
it's only getting more true. Yeah, like,
it's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, like
that people are willing to do that.
Concretely, I didn't go to work today. I only work 3 days a week at my day job. The other 2 days I work on pod stuff.
Yeah. So we put out a lot of stuff. I'm not saying that to pat ourselves on the back,
right?
But as long as people are there to listen to it, we want to do it, and this lets us do it.
Yes.
Otherwise we would have to stop.
Yeah.
So not saying that to hold anything hostage, just the reality of the situation is can't do the amount of stuff that we do on top of a 40-hour a week job.
Right.
So really, really do appreciate it. We recognize how lucky we are if you, if whenever we complain about something like this and somebody's like, oh man, those assholes are talking about like, talking about having to read a comic like it's, real work, and they could be sandblasting for $9 an hour. It's like I'm very aware of that, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
excuse me, sir, sir, ma'am.
I know. I know that we could be sandblasting for $9 an hour, and I'm very, very grateful that I'm not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to that. We have some stuff planned after Salt, and then we're going to kind of, DLC 2 is coming up. We're going to start talking about sometime around there what we're going to do next after that. But I understand this season has been unpredictable, and we appreciate your patience with that as well.
Yeah. People have kind of been inundating us with calls about Neo.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me to bring that up, because I wanted to bring that up in the nicest possible way. Please stop doing that. It's not I understand, like it's nice that you want to hear us talk about it. I've just heard about it a lot, and I feel like I've been the subject of like a proxy war between people who are in favor and people who are opposed to it. And part of that I brought on myself because I was pretty publicly down on the demo. Like, I don't like the demo very much.
Yeah.
So we're just figuring it out. Like, it will, I think that I can feel comfortable announcing that like it will have some kind of presence on the network.
Yeah.
It's just whether we do like a 1 episode review kind of thing, or whether we do a couple episodes and talk about it more in depth.
Yeah.
It'll be one or the other, but we just heard about it a lot. That's nobody's fault individually, but we just heard about it a lot. And just so we're already aware, and there's no need.
Yes. Yeah. So do not believe you're the first person to bring it to our attention. And we are, both of us have our hands on it, or are planning to play it. It's just an incredibly long game, and just fitting that in and figuring out how to give it the proper shrift, see if it is a good fit for the show. It is a process that we just didn't take into account when we were planning all of this.
Yeah. I mean, we did talk about it and stuff. I just didn't necessarily, the amount to which, if it ends up being hostile, for me. Which that's not me saying I want a bunch of people to say the last thing I want is actually it's not that hard, because I assure you I have heard that enough. But if it ends up being frustrating for me, like it's whether I want to, whether we want to deal with that and have to power through, which is like a choice we're gonna have to make. Like the input, the votes are already in. Right. People have already told us one way or another, but that's ultimately going to be our choice, and I would ask that people respect it.
Yeah.
And then. I think that's probably about it.
Just about.
If you like this, another thing real quick, I personally feel like we're doing super great work over at Watch Out for Fireballs at the moment.
I agree.
The last couple months, I think and people have told us this as well. It's not just us, again, trying to pat ourselves on the back, but I really feel like we're doing kind of our best work over there, and have been for the last maybe 6 months or so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Of that show. So if you like this show, if you like kind of our approach to things, I am very confident you will also like Watch Out for Fireballs.
Yes. Do not be daunted by the kind of just amount of content on that feed. Go in and look for a game that you are familiar with, not so much just a game that you like, and check us out from there, especially here within the last 6 months. And, keep an eye out. We have some cool stuff coming down the pike for that. We have a special episode about Nintendo Power. That's a little bit of a departure, but we're going to be talking about Tomb Raider here pretty quick.
Yeah. Which is a kind of lonely and desolate solo exploration game.
Yeah. Which,
that might appeal to you as a Dark Souls fan. But give that a shot if you've never tried it before. It may not be for you, but we'd appreciate it if you give it a shot.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that is just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So thanks very much. And what should they do until next time, Cole?
They should watch out for Ornstein's Lugged Spear.
Lugged.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
Or lugged. Neither way sounds good.